Thank you, Maria, and thank you to Degi and Rasheed for giving their very useful presentation that provided us with a very interesting and complete, I would say, overview of Rural Advisory Service. I would start with a general question we received from the audience, and I would address it to Degi as it's a general one about RAS and CSA. And the question would be, how do we expand Rural Advisory Service for climate-smart agriculture sustainably?
Hello, thanks, Bianca. This is a very big question, but you know, local context is very crucial. Local context of social, economic, and institutional setup of the country is very important to consider in answering this kind of questions. However, there is no magic bullet per se, but as we mentioned, that there is in many countries, and especially many developing countries, there are not enough RAS providers. There is always limited staff, limited resources, but then at the same time, as we mentioned also, that there are other players besides public extension services out there working with producers. So I think that we need to think about how can we embrace this pluralism that is happening, and how can we organize this pluralism in a positive, coordinated manner, so that we all tap into each other's resources and instead duplicating and multiply our efforts and expand our services. Could be one. And also here it's very important to the encouraging and incentivizing the collaboration with other ministries and other sectors, because as we know that climate change is very close to the Ministry of Environment, and rural advisory services are very close to the agriculture sector ministries. So you know, we need to start collaborating with each other and try to scale up our efforts in this. And other issue, sorry, if I may, is the capacity issue. And I think there is urgent need to enhance the proper understanding of climate change and climate smart agriculture of the rural advisory service providers. Back to you, Bianca.
Okay, thank you very much, Degi. I would have now an interesting question for Rasheed instead, as he mentioned more than once, in fact, in his presentation, the important role of the private sector in providing rural advisory services. So how can we integrate efficiently a climate-smart agriculture into rural advisory service in a predominantly private sector-led extension system as it is becoming now? So what kind of policies or incentives should be put in place in this sense?
Thanks, Bianca, for the question on the role of private sector. One of the way to deal with especially in countries where the private sector plays a predominant role in RAS, is to provide access to access to climate funds for the private sector. For instance, even within the RAS, we have been earlier talking about public funds and private delivery. So one option is we can give the responsibility in areas where private sector plays a predominant role. You can provide access to finances, you can fund them. Second is to train the RAS providers in the private sector on many of these aspects, technical aspects related to climate change, and also strengthening their capacities. And thirdly, I would say, if we can bring all these partners into the kind of the RAS platforms where we are discussing about climate change, it should be inclusive. It should have participation from the private sector as well as the NGOs and producer organizations and of course the public sector. So I think if you follow these three things, probably we will be able to utilize the strengths of the private sector and use them to support climate smart agriculture.
Okay, Rasheed, thank you very much for your exhaustive answer. I would now pass on to Maria to introduce the next speaker.